Hey everyone, welcome back to POL 702, Advanced Techniques of Political Science Research. This week we're going to move beyond the basic linear regression framework to model continuous outcomes, and we're going to look at models for binary dependent variables. So what are we going to do? How can we model outcomes that are dichotomous, that only have two discrete outcomes, and what happens if we use our basic linear regression model, and what are better ways to capture that data generating process. Okay, so here is the outline for this week for the videos, as well as the Q&A session that we're going to have on Monday. In the first video, I'm going to talk about the linear probability model, in which we will basically talk briefly about what happens if you have a dichotomous outcome and you just use OLS the way we talked about it before. Okay, how can we interpret OLS with such discrete binary outcomes? Okay, and then, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about how we can better model this underlying data generating process if the outcome is indeed binary. And in order to do that, we're going to talk about specifically logit and probit models. Okay, and then to wrap all of that up, we're going to look at one example that is discussed in our textbook, which is focusing on modeling political preferences based on income, specifically looking at US presidential elections and voting behavior or support for presidential candidates based on household income. Okay. So regarding your to-do list for this week, as always, go through these lecture videos, but very importantly, not only look at the lecture videos, but make sure to also go through the code for this session on our Studio Cloud, as always. And I mention this because not all the code is going to be included on these slides here. There are some plots and some figures that I'm going to show you where I don't go exactly line by line through every piece of code, but nevertheless that code will be helpful for you to either work on your next set of assignments, or it might be useful snippets of code that you could use also in your replication exercise, right? So as you watch these videos, as always, please make sure to also look at the code on RStudio Cloud and go through the commands step by step, and make sure to kind of play around with those commands as well, and really get an idea of what is really happening in R, and how you can actually reproduce what I'm showing you in those slides. Okay, it will help you with the assignments for sure. The required reading for this week is Gelman Hill, our textbook, chapter 13. So we'll just basically follow the structure in that textbook with our discussion, but I also included a couple of additional readings, particularly on kind of modeling binary outcomes, but more from this classical frequentist perspective. Okay, so there are a couple of details that kind of our required textbook, the Gelman book, kind of glances over a little bit. And so in order to give you a little bit more background information on those kind of on this frequentist perspective, I included a chapter in the long book on modeling discrete outcomes, which is really great. And I definitely recommend you taking a look at that, as well as the chapter 5 in the King book, Unifying Political Methodology. We've read some chapters from this book before when we introduced this idea of maximum likelihood estimation, and this is just the continuation of that discussion, focusing on kind of deriving the logit and probit models. Okay, so those are really, really useful as like additional background knowledge after you've read the required textbook. Okay, and then as always, I will, after recording these videos, I will upload assignment 4 on Canvas in our Studio Cloud. You'll have 2 weeks to work on this assignment, as always, so it will be due on April 16th, on Friday. And so make sure, as always, to get a head start and look at that assignment early and start working on it. So you have 2 Q&A sessions basically to ask questions before you have to submit the assignment. Okay, that's all for the overview. In the next video, I'm going to introduce the linear probability model.